the keys are to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Time to talk about stock up 49ers after their preseason matchup against the Denver Broncos. And it doesn't mean that this is the overall read on how things are going to play out, but what it does show is that there's people making a move, and rookies are on the rise for the San Francisco 49ers. There were some guys at the top of the roster. There are some guys at the bottom of the roster when you're talking about these rookies that are stepping up and they're making some plays and they're making everyone take notice of who they are. And I did my Upon Further Review episode, and I didn't touch on some of these guys. And the reason was I was planning on talking about them in Stock Up 49ers. So some of the guys I might talk about in both, but for the most part, maybe talking about some guys I didn't talk about before. Too much content for one show. I had to put it in another one. So I'm going to be talking about the rookies on a rise. I'm going to get into some of the other younger players who made some moves as well. But I'm going to really lean on the rookies in this episode because we had guys who were stepping up. You know, a Connor Kobe who was making plays, and I really wanted to evaluate his play and how he looked. You know, a guy like Drew Moss who had struggled, you know, at training camp a little bit here and there on one-on-ones, being able to consistently perform. But he got out there against the Denver Broncos, and he did a pretty good job. Or what about Corey Kiner and what he adds to this football team and how he ran in the absence of Isaac Guerendo, the absence of Jordan James? Guess what? Opportunity for Corey Kiner to go out there and make a move. And so this is going to be a fun episode. We're going to talk about all about the rookies who are on a rise and stock up 49ers. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, that also has standard bets, player props, same game parlays. They go quarter by quarter with action, and they got the 49ers favored to win the division at plus 155. If you want to go bet, go over to FanDuel and bet. They are the title sponsor of 49ers Cutback. So let's get into this. I'm really excited to talk about these players, and I want to start on the offensive line. I want to start with Connor Kobe and Drew Moss. And evaluating the interior part of the offensive line is something I find rather enjoyable. You know, the old line coach in me kind of comes out, and I get to evaluate what's going on. And, you know, I really took a deep look at Nick Zakelj, at Ben Barch, at Matt Hennessy. You know, and I broke all that down. But now I want to talk about these two young guys who are stepping in and playing the offensive guard positions. And it wasn't really what we expected to happen. I expected there to be a little bit more struggles, and there was some. It wasn't clean performances from Connor Kobe or Drew Moss, but it was better performance than expected. It shows that they've had growth. Even since the last time that, you know, I saw them in person, there was growth. And some guys do step up in key situations and games and just play a little bit better. Now, one of the most entertaining things about Connor Kobe has been how much he stepped up right away. And there was a lot of people that when he got drafted were ready to put him in to a competition for the starting lineup, and that's not the case. But what we have is a player who fits the mold of what the 49ers draft, but also a guy that is playing pretty darn physical and has pretty good technique. And so what I liked about Connor Kobe was question marks about him about pass protection coming out of the draft were all the rage, right? Because Connor Kobe wasn't that great of a pass protector, but was a very solid run blocker in a very similar zone scheme in Iowa. Now he comes to the 49ers, and he's been better in pass protection than in the run game. And you might ask why. You know, Chris Foerster said that, and it blows everyone's mind. Well, part of the reason is, even though Iowa runs a zone scheme, they don't run the 49ers zone scheme. There are little nuances to the 49ers zone scheme that set it apart from other zone schemes around. So this is something that Connor Kobe has to kind of get used to, is different landmarks, different ways to play, different techniques. So the run game is usually the thing that the 49ers say has to catch up, right? Same thing with Dominic Puni, young guy. Is the run game going to catch up quick enough? For Puni, it did. For Connor Kobe, that's where he's kind of having a little bit of his struggles. Now, what we saw in the game with Denver, though, was him being able to adequately get where he needed to get. So a lot of the angles were right. A lot of his points where he needed to go, his reference points where he needed to get to, his landmarks, he was hitting those. And so I like that. I think that there is still some technique things that he's got to continue to work on. But what we're seeing is a player kind of come into his own a little bit. He's now putting himself in the mix. And the 49ers have a very, very deep interior offensive line. When you look at the depth behind the starters, right? Right now, presumed starters. I say presume because we don't know what's going to happen or shake out. But you got Ben Barch at left guard, Dominic Puni at right guard, and Jake Brendel at center. Behind them, competing for roster spots, you got Nick Zakelj, you've got Matt Hennessy, and then you've got question marks about who the next guy is. You know, is it going to end up being Spencer Burford with Andre Dillard coming back, or could it be a young guy like Connor Kobe? The 49ers removed Zach Johnson. They waived him last week. So you've got a situation where you move on from Zach Johnson, and that creates an opportunity here for Connor Kobe. Now, the 49ers would have to keep extra offensive linemen. And unfortunately, I don't think the 49ers can keep Connor Kobe and keep Drew Moss. But Connor Kobe's looking good. He's looking as a 7th-round pick should. I think that he really kind of developed in this game. I thought he came into his own. He looked comfortable. He was making a lot of his blocks he needed to make. He was holding up for the most part in pass protection. So I did like Connor Kobe. I think he's on the rise right now. Now, I want to see him build upon this, and you guys heard me talk about this with other offensive linemen, about consistency. So what can Connor Kobe look like this week against the Raiders when he's going against a different cast of characters with different skill sets? How is he going to handle guys who are really good with lateral quickness and guys who have a ability to bull rush you? You got to be able to handle both. That's one of the things that makes Dominic Puni special. Lateral quickness to be able to move side to side and stay with the most athletic defensive tackles, but also a really supreme anchor to be able to hold up against the bigger, more physical defensive tackles that can get a push. That's what separates the really good interior offensive lineman from the okay offensive lineman, is the ability to do both. And still be able to do the things in the run game you need to do, getting out to the second level, using athleticism. That's when you get the special offensive lineman like Dominic Puni that can do it all. Connor Kobe has the necessary athleticism to get to the second level. We've seen it. We've seen him be able to get there. He holds his blocks pretty well. So when he gets his vice grips on you, he does a pretty good job. It's just, can he be consistent in getting there? And I think that this is going to be a fun thing to watch over the next several weeks, is going to be Connor Kobe's, evolution and how he continues to grow inside this 49ers offense, and if he can push for a roster spot. 49ers are going to have to make some real decisions. I think Nick Zakel's got an opportunity to make this team. I think Matt Hennessy has a chance to make this team. Spencer Burford, we'll see. Is he going to be the swing tackle, or is he going to be put in a state of flux? But Connor Kobe's now entered the conversation, and I think that's good, because just a couple weeks ago, we might have said he was on the outside looking in. So it's good to see him rise and make something happen. And that means good news for the 49ers' eventual interior offensive line, because Drew Moss also came out and performed well. And I will say this, the Drew Moss one definitely surprised me, because what I had seen on film and what I had seen in person at training camp was showing a player that had a lot more development still to go compared to a Connor Kobe. So Drew Moss was more of a project, and I still believe Drew Moss is a project. I think that Drew Moss isn't ready to be a starter anytime soon. Do I believe that he could be a guy who could be a rotational piece on a bad football team this year? Yeah, I do. Do I think he could be a rotational piece on a really good football team next year? 100% I do. I think that he's got a really nice skill set. He's got a good lower half. He's really strong. He's got a great base. And so he's just got to work on some of the technique things. Some of the hand placement still an issue. A little bit of the waist bend still an issue. But he's got the necessary tools to be able to develop. So being with a good offensive line coach that can develop your skills is going to be hyper important. So I think Drew Moss right now, even though he is rising, I think he's still a guy that's kind of on the outside looking in. I don't think there's a spot for him and Connor Kobe, but he could be situationally right on the right spot where he gets on the 49ers practice squad, continues to develop. And by the time we get to next year, he could have a real shot. You have a lot of movement going on with this 49ers interior offensive line next year. Nick Zakelj, going to be a free agent. Matt Hennessy, a free agent. Spencer Burford, a free agent. Ben Barch, a free agent. They're going to have a lot of guys that are going to be potentially moving on. So having young core guys that you can develop that could potentially step in and compete is going to be very important for this 49ers roster in 2026. So I think that what you've seen from Drew Moss is something I want to see him build upon. In fact, I would love to see him have a better outing against the Raiders, because even though this one was good, it wasn't as good as Connor Kobe's performance. And so I'd like to see him get a little bit more consistent. But, right, this is the difference between Connor Kobe, who could have easily been drafted in the 5th or 6th round, compared to Drew Moss, who was an undrafted free agent. And I think that they are both in a prime position to develop, get better. And the cool thing is, throughout the preseason, the 49ers are going to give them plenty of snaps. So on the rise, Connor Kobe, on the rise, Drew Moss, both of them showing the ability to, get some movement at the point of attack, which can be a problem for the 49ers offensive linemen that are built more on speed, more on athleticism, getting to their landmarks in the outside zone game. So these guys being able to be the size that they are and move, and Moss a little bit thicker than Connor Kobe, but it's nice to see these guys in movement. And so big fans of them. Stock up for the interior part of the 49ers offensive line with Connor Kobe and Drew Moss. Now, another stock up rookie has to be Marquise Siegel. Marquise Siegel had a very impressive preseason showing against the Denver Broncos. And this kind of emulates what we thought about him, but it was going to be how much opportunity was he going to get, and then how much could he pick up and maintain. Because there's a lot of football that gets thrown at you, especially when you play in the secondary, where you've got to worry about coverages and alignments and passing off guys in zone coverage. You got to know when to be in the box, when to be deep, and you've got to cover ground. You got to do a lot of things. Not to mention, on top of that, you got to make sure you tackle. That, I think, was the part of Marquise Siegel's game that took everyone by notice and everyone by storm, was Marquise Siegel tackling. And the main play, and I know I talked about it yesterday, but I have to talk about it again, is that screen out to RJ Harvey, where there is just so much space for the running back to be able to make something happen. And this is how you draw it up. Open field, you've got one-on-one. If he makes Marquise Siegel miss, it's a big-time play for the Denver Broncos. But Marquise Siegel comes up, he squares him up perfectly, he chops his feet, he breaks down, he does a form tackle, and he gets him to the ground. And this is one of those plays that we have loved from safeties in the past, but haven't got so much from safeties, in the recent memory, right? We've seen it from guys like Huff and Tashawn Gibson. They did a pretty good job, but they, having the other guys, Jair Brown was missing these tackles. Malik Mustafa would make them. Sometimes he's a guided missile, so sometimes he misses, but it was an important play for Marquise Siegel, and I thought he did a fantastic job. And I think that was the part that really got my attention. But what I love to see was, even though we had a couple of breakdowns here and there, you didn't have consistent issues. And we've talked about his versatility a lot. Is you have a guy in Marquise Siegel that can play a true free safety role. He can come up in the box, yes, and he can mix it up in the run game. He can blitz off the outside. He can come up into the slot as a nickel or dime. He can cover that slot receiver and do a pretty good job. This is the versatility the 49ers were looking for, with the physicality that can still operate inside the box. This is a true free safety with tackling ability. It's huge that Marquise Siegel is playing that way. Now, he's going to have opportunity. How much, we'll see. You've got injuries to Richie Grant, injuries to Jair Brown. So Jason Pinnock, Marquise Siegel, they're going to have a lot of opportunities. It also gives opportunities to young guys like Derek Canteen. He's going to have a shot at safety as well. I think he's still on the outside, him and Jalen Mahoney, but both of them played pretty well. Mahoney was really good tackling again. And he was, just back to this team in the last week or so. So Marquise Siegel is a guy that I'm watching. Can he stack it? And Kyle Shanahan said at his presser just yesterday that there's an opportunity for Marquise Siegel, to maybe get his starting job. Now, I think he's saying that. He's kind of dangling that carrot out there for Marquise Siegel. I don't know if that's an honest assessment. I do think Marquise Siegel has showed a lot, but there's a lot to playing NFL safety. And we've seen rookies struggle a little bit for the 49ers over the last several years, right? They haven't been able to work in unless it was injury. Well, here's an opportunity for Siegel. And I've said it from the beginning. I would love for it to happen. We'll see what happens. Will this push Jair Brown? Will this push Richie Grant? It should. It should light a fire under him because Marquise Siegel's ready to go. And I think the versatility, the speed, the tackling ability, all that is a reason he's a stock-up 49er. And now I'm going to flip it to offense again and talk about Corey Kiner. And I thought that Corey Kiner had a really strong preseason debut. When you just look at the way that he ran, he did such a great job, getting out there and making some key cuts, some key reads. And one thing when I was watching him was I felt like he had not just good vision because he was doing a good job going in the right hole, but he had good feel for it too. As you're running, things start opening up, and he had a good feel of when to cut, when to get vertical, and then the necessary explosion. You've got to be able to explode into your gap, and that was the thing. These guys don't have a lot of straight line speed. When you talk about a lot of the 49ers running backs, McCaffrey, Jordan James, Corey Kiner, Patrick Taylor, these guys aren't straight ahead fast like Isaac Rendo, but they have a acceleration that's like, boom, there you go. And that's what we saw from Corey Kiner. And I thought that he was mixing it real nice. He threw in a little stiff arm. He showed some great balance, was playing physical at the point of contact. And it just looked to me like Corey Kiner had this thing pretty much figured out, right? He was doing a very good job of understanding the running back position. I don't think it was Elijah Mitchell-esque, right? When Elijah Mitchell, his rookie season, kind of came on the scene and stepped up and was just explosive, and you could see that he was just a difference maker. He was going to rip off 8 to 10-yard runs, more than not. But I thought that Corey Kiner did a really good job on his first opportunity, and I think that it's his stock up. And the 49ers continue to add veterans in the room with some of the injuries. You've got Jeff Wilson Jr., you got Keyshawn Vaughn, you've got some guys in the mix for the 49ers, and I think Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to be interesting. Him and Patrick Taylor Jr. are similar. Now, I think Patrick Taylor Jr. doesn't have the juice that Jeff Wilson does as far as speed, but these guys have a really good feel playing in the system. They're going to do things right. But Corey Kiner is still in a competition. He's still got to go out and beat some key veterans and make sure that Kyle Shanahan feels comfortable. But one thing Corey Kiner also did in this game that I think sets him apart from a lot of rookies was when he was tasked with pass protection, he did a very solid job. He stepped up and made the block. And I think that is a key element to how you not only make this football team, but how you're able to log snaps for Kyle Shanahan. When Bobby Turner and Kyle Shanahan feel comfortable that you're going to do the right things in the right situations, they're going to feel comfortable to play you. And that's why we've seen him lean on certain people. That's why it used to frustrate people when Tevin Coleman would get so much playing time. But the reason was Kyle Shanahan felt comfortable with him being out on the field. So you've got to make sure he has a comfort with you, right? That's part of the thing that he did. He didn't have comfort with Jordan Mason in pass protection. So he went other directions. And so that's going to be a big element for Corey Kiner. So I hope Kiner has another good performance this week against the Raiders and builds upon that, because I do think he's got a bright future in the NFL. I mean, right now, we're just through one game, so I don't want to blow it out of the water, but he looks like he can be a consistent ball carrier in the NFL. I don't think he's a whole shot guy. I don't think he's an explosive run guy, but I think he could have some consistent carries and kind of get some yards and move the sticks. I think that's an important part of his game. Junior Bergen. How about Junior Bergen? And I got to give Bergen some props. And it wasn't for anything he did offensively. But we've been saying for a while, he has to be special on special teams. And I thought that he showed his special play. We didn't see it in the kick return game, but we saw it in the punt return. Catches the ball. He makes sure he secures the catch, which is the most important thing. And that was my biggest concern because of watching him at training camp. There are times where he struggles a little bit, but he squared it up real nice. He made a great catch, and then he had the vision to make someone miss. And he was one block away from being one-on-one with the punter. So that's how close it was from it just being what it was, which was a significant change in field position, which is a big thing for the 49ers. You change field position like that, your chances of scoring go up immensely. So that was a key element. And Brant Boyer said, this is who this guy is. So we've got to see more of this from Bergen. I think one of the toughest things for Junior Bergen is you just don't have that many opportunities, to prove what you can do. But if he can have another one this preseason, or even two, I think it could help him prove that he can make this team. Now, it's tough. You got so many injuries at wide receiver, which may make it so Bergen has to prove he can produce on offense. Kyle says he's seen some things. I saw him catch the ball, here and there. He's made a few plays, nothing dynamic, but it appears he knows the offense. He knows where to line up, and so he's got some ability there. But it really comes down to how dynamic can he be on special teams. And if he can be a guy that changes field position 1 or 2 times a game, that is going to be enough to keep him on this football team, because that could be the difference between a scoring drive and a non-scoring drive. You're able to move the sticks, a couple of first downs. Well, guess what? If all of a sudden he changed field position, got to midfield, 2 first downs put you in field goal range, where if he wasn't able to change it, it's a punt. And so I think that this is just a different characteristic. Kyle Shanahan might be willing to kind of hold on and get Junior Bergen. So that's something to watch. Bergen, though, on the rise. Another guy on the rise is Chase Lucas. And I won't take too much time talking about Chase Lucas because he is absolutely on everyone's mind for how he played. And as well he should be. Chase Lucas was solid. And I talked about this on the Red and Bolt show with Mark. Was the thing that impressed me the most about Chase Lucas was his run fits. And that's one of the dynamics that a nickel corner playing for the 49ers has to have, right? We've talked about the crack toss through the years, that outside run game, and a lot of times, when it wasn't Yammer Lenore, that was a struggle. Isaiah Oliver, other guys really struggled in that department. Well, we've been talking Upton Stout, and Upton Stout's good at that, but Chase Lucas proved, hey, I could do it too. And I thought that was a big element to this performance versus the Broncos. It was coverage, but it was the run fits as well. And the reason it's so significant is teams like the Rams through the years have liked to put the 49ers in 11 personnel and then pick on a smaller nickel corner with their wide receivers, get able to block them and create some avenues to run the football. If the 49ers are going to be really good, if they're going to be stout, say that way, in the run game in the nickel, it's going to be because of a nickel corner. So Chase Lucas, just like Connor Kobe, took himself from maybe not making this roster, being an afterthought, to being in the mix. I don't think a performance like that can be ignored by the defensive coaching staff of the 49ers. And I think that they're going to give an opportunity to Chase Lucas to see if he could double down and do it again. And if he does, he's going to make this football team. That's just too good of play to overlook. And I get it. It's a preseason game. But when you are in the right places at the right times and you can build on that, you have a shot to be a good, consistent NFL player. So I think that Chase Lucas is going to have a chance. I think Trey Brown, who also had a very good performance, I'm not going to put him on stock up because he's played against third stringers, and we know that he's a guy that should be up there in the mix to start. I think that he also played well. So I think you're going to get a mixture of both of those guys. And then, of course, we're waiting to see Upton Stout could be ready for the Raiders joint practice. He's still dealing with the calf. If he's ready, then maybe we could see him against the Raiders, and I'm excited for that debut. But that's something interesting to watch. So we're going to be watching Chase Lucas as he continues to move up. Now, finding great candidates to hire can be like trying to find a needle in a haystack. You get too many resumes and not enough candidates with the right skills and experience. But not with ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter finds amazing candidates for you fast. And right now you can try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. Immediately after you post your job, ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology starts showing you qualified people for it. Ditch the other hiring sites and let ZipRecruiter find what you're looking for, the needle in a haystack. 4 out of 5 employers who posts on ZipRecruiter to get quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free at executive exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And I want to keep talking about a couple more guys because I think that there's still some guys that we need to talk about that stepped up and are stock up 49ers. And I got to go with my guy Tatum Bethune, right? Florida State. I watched Tatum Bethune's entire college career, especially his senior year. He was out there all day, every day, making plays. And when he came to the 49ers, I was very excited. It was a late 7th round pick. I kind of called it on air that, hey, he was a possibility. I was going with the 2 Florida State linebackers, and it ended up being Tatum Bethune. And I was excited. The one thing that we saw last year in training camp and during the preseason was Tatum Bethune struggled when it came to pass coverage. It wasn't so much that he can't cover. It's just he wasn't very comfortable in zone coverage. He wasn't getting his necessary drops. He was dropping the wrong way, a little improper technique. He was getting lost a little bit, which is understandable with a young player. Now, when he got into the games in the end of the regular season, it was a difference for Tatum Bethune. He started covering good. He was doing a good job. He was getting to the right spots. He was running down the field and making some plays. Go back and watch it. It's there. Now, what did he do in this one? He stepped up. Not only is he playing Mike linebacker and doing everything that he needs to do, he's dropping deep down the field in a Tampa 2 where he's got the vertical deep down the middle, and he's running downfield and handling that job. He's running sideline to make tackles. He's getting his nose, sticking it in there and making tackles in the box, playing off coverage, letting the guy catch the ball, making the tackle in front of the sticks. It was just a very solid performance by Tatum Bethune. And I know it wasn't perfect and there's mistakes, but it was just so good to see a young player developing and a stark comparison to what we saw last year. So Bethune is on the rise. And, I kind of threw this out there that I think that when you look at the linebacker position, the 49ers have their guys towards the top that are pretty darn good. But I think it kind of even got more clear of who the top dogs are for the 49ers. Of course, D. Winters is number 2 linebacker next to Fred Warner. But linebacker 3, and another stock-up 49er, has to be Luke Gifford. He didn't play a lot of snaps, right? When you play Sam linebacker, there's not as many opportunities to play on the field as anyways because teams don't go to 12 personnel or 21 personnel very much, which puts you in your base defense, which is the 4-3, and they call it base, even though you play nickel 70% of the time. That should be the new base, but that's neither here nor there. 4-3, he's going to be out there. So he got 10 snaps, which is actually a lot in a first half in the NFL, right? And he did such a good job. Luke Gifford flew around. You could tell he had understanding of what the scheme was for Denver. He was moving in the right directions. He was instinctive. He was good in coverage. Luke Gifford did a great job. But what kind of brought into form was the 49ers now have 4 legitimate linebackers at the top that we've been able to see so far. Fred Warner, D. Winters, Luke Gifford, Tatum Bethune. Bethune is in that mix now. Him and Gifford were so good in this game that I feel comfortable now if either one of them is the Sam linebacker week 1 against Seattle. D. Winters continued to build upon his performance and his limited snaps, but that grouping, those 4 guys, you got to feel comfortable. In fact, I feel more comfortable with that linebacker group than I did anytime that DFF was the first guy in. I love DFF, but this is a stark upgrade. Gifford is just more talented. He's more skilled. He has a better understanding of schemes. You could tell he has an understanding of what the opposing offense is doing. And I think Bethune is instinctive, and he's only going to get better. So I'm super excited about both of those linebackers. And now we've got a question mark with 4 guys there, and Nick Martin making this team no matter what. And, I talked about Nick Martin a lot yesterday. Nick Martin is going to get better. You have 5 linebackers. If you are keeping 6, that means there is a huge battle for that last spot. You have Curtis Robinson, the Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee, and we know the 49ers loved him. He almost started last year if he didn't get injured. So remember that. You got Chaz Surratt, who is a Robert Saleh guy. We didn't see him last week. He was dealing with an injury or something. He's back. So Surratt we'll see this week. That's going to be important. His special teams prowess is what sets him apart from Jalen Graham, who struggled on special teams, but is also in the mix. Curtis Robinson, good at special teams. Chaz Surratt, good at special teams. Surratt had 10 tackles last year. That's impressive. So you've got these guys, and then you've got the young guy, Stone Blanton, who I know Stone Blanton had some misses. He had some good plays. It was very up and down for Stone Blanton. Understandable first preseason game. But you have a real battle for that last linebacker job. I think this thing is going to be extremely impressive and fun to watch these guys step up. And I'm curious about Chaz Surratt. But also, I want to give a little bit of love, because I've been so hard on the tight end position, to Jake Tunges. And the reason I want to is because Jake Tunges really didn't do anything in the preseason last year. He didn't really make any catches. He didn't really make any good significant blocks. Yet he made the 49ers 53-man roster. And one of my concerns has been, Braden Willis, Jake Tunges, Ross Dwelley. Which one of these guys can step up and be tight end 3? And even though I don't think anyone stepped up into the role where I feel comfortable with them being tight end 3, I thought Jake Tunges took steps forward. He had some key catches. He had catches that were tough to make, right? One a little bit thrown behind him, makes it, gets hit, still able to make the catch. So I saw some positive steps for Tunges. And having a guy that can catch the ball as your third tight end is important, because that's not really what Luke Farrell does. He's more of a blocking tight end. So you need somebody that they can have that effect. Now, I will say I did see Braden Willis get open a couple of times. He did not get the football, but you've seen him at least moving pretty good. But I thought Jake Tunges put himself kind of in the mix for that spot. And it had been Braden Willis that had moved up. Jake Tunges was behind him, and then Ross Dwelley kind of in the mix. Well, now I think that Jake Tunges has evened it out with Braden Willis. This is going to be a fun battle to see who wins this job. So a lot of fun. I really have enjoyed the 49ers and the guys who are stepping up and making plays. These are rookies on the rise, stock up 49ers. Let me know if I missed somebody. Let me know in the comment section. Hopefully I didn't, but it does happen. Leave them in the comment section, and I'd love to talk about it. What did you think about the guys I did talk about? Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Belief Network, please give it a 5-star rating if you feel like I deserve it. And of course, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Go check it out, see if you like it, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.